what is Initia? Should we take Initia seriously?
Probably not. No, I'm just kidding. Also, are you officially part of the Rollup now?
I am.
No, he's not. Unfortunately not.
What?
Wait, okay, yes.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rollup. Welcome to a chain abstraction palooza where we just wrapped up an epic one-day marathon in the heart of New York City, diving deep into chain abstraction with some of the top teams in crypto. Trust me, this series is packed with insights, laughs, and a few surprises you won't want to miss. Shout out to Omni Network for helping to put this together with their upcoming Mainnet soon, targeting the interoperability and UX problem that we're currently facing in the Ethereum and Modular ecosystem. We've really enjoyed this series and looking forward to putting all of this content out there. Let's jump right into today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners who make this possible.
Vertex Edge is now live on Say Network. Say users can now trade 50 plus spot and perp markets with the unified order book liquidity of Vertex Edge across Arbitrum, Blast, Mantle, and Say. The next 6 weeks, 850,000 Say tokens will be up for grabs as trading rewards every single week, exclusively on Say. Join Vertex on Say Network now on Vertex Edge. That's vertexprotocol.com.
Cartesia is your home for app-specific rollups. At the forefront of developing new tools and platforms that enhance the capabilities of blockchain technology, Cartesia enables applications that are flexible and built to scale. Build on a full Linux environment and use traditional software libraries, but in blockchain development. Go to cartesia.io, that's cartesia.io, to learn more about building your own app chain today.
All right, we're in New York City with Zahn. Zahn, I like your Crocs.
Thanks, man. They're a staple.
Yeah.
Quite comfortable.
Are those NFTs you got on them, or are those just random?
No,
buttons?
they're just random gibbets. We got some Shin Ramen, a dinosaur, Hello Kitty, just all my favorite things. You know?
Yeah, why do I feel like there's such a strong Asian influence in Initia's brand? Like a Korean influence?
We do post a lot of anime content.
Yeah.
Right? All of us in crypto are nerds. So,
Yeah.
and incels sometimes. So that's the content we like. And then a bulk of our team lives and works out of Seoul.
Okay.
And so
Yeah, don't you hop there like a decent amount?
I'm there maybe 3 months out of the year, and I'm going there next week for KBW.
Oh, nice. I heard it was kind of mid last year.
I didn't go last year, so
Okay. Are you going to Token as well?
I am going to Token too.
Nice.
You?
Yeah, I'll be there. Not going to go to KBW though.
You don't like Korea?
I don't want to go to the Initia headquarters, no. I'll be a menace there.
We made 300 bottles of Initia branded soju.
I saw that. That's
I like that.
alcoholic, right?
That is alcoholic.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've not been to Asia, so excuse my young and naive questions.
Florida mans, eh?
Florida man in Asia, that's right. Well, cool, man. I mean, you've been on the Rollup before a couple times, and just recently I've been starting to get questions from Ethereum ecosystem builders in different Rollup clusters, if you will, unnamed Ethereum ecosystem builders saying, what is Initia? Should we take this seriously? And so my question to start this whole thing is should we take Initia seriously?
Probably not. No, I'm just kidding. I hope so. I mean, it's really left up to like builders and teams. Like we're obviously going to try and put out the best product we can, and it's up to each individual to look at Initia and see if it's valuable for them.
Yeah.
All right, can I try to pitch Initia and then you correct me on everything I got wrong?
Okay, sure.
Okay, this comes.
Wait, also, are you officially part of the Rollup now?
I am.
No, he's not. Unfortunately not.
What?
Wait, okay, yes, wait, no, he's not. No. This is my interview.
I guess I'm not. No, yeah, all right, I just got demoted. That's fine. I am now CEO of Initia. So at Initia, we have built an L1 specifically focused not for users, but for rollups. And in many ways, we took the technological learnings from Ethereum over time and built that ground up in the chain itself. Am I a good CEO of Initia, or am I a bad
Can
one?
I jump in there and add, and then you'll give us the response? So also, I think taking the best parts of the Cosmos and IBC stack and putting them in the Rollup ecosystem, disclosure, I invested in Initia, I'm bullish on Zon, bullish on the project. But my idea is basically like you guys built this ecosystem at a time that like Ethereum and Cosmos both kind of already went through these pitfalls. So I feel like you took the best part of Ethereum's kind of Rollup landscape, mixed it with IBC, and basically gave the properties of like liquidity designs of almost like proof of liquidity at the L1 to where, and the incentive mechanisms for the kind of L2s, and brought this kind of all together in a pitch. Austin was much more concise, but that is like my addition.
I left parts out.
Yeah.
All right, so how wrong are we?
All it is it's a network for interwoven rollups. That's what the answer would be.
Okay,
If
all
you
right.
were the Initia CEO. But luckily, I'm not the Initia CEO. Stan is.
What a guy, that guy.
Yeah, good lad. But so I can chill for a bit longer.
Yeah.
Essentially, Initia is a network for interwoven rollups. What we did is we just holistically rebuilt how multi-chain networks should work by taking some of the best learnings from Cosmos and the flexibility of Cosmos SDK, the rollup frameworks on Ethereum, and then ensuring when we have this modular expansion and this rollup-centric future that we don't face the same clusterfuck that we have right now of like liquidity fragmentation, user fragmentation, and user experience that exists within those landscapes, as well as build like a robust economic framework that kind of ties it all together and makes sure that value is flowing in the right ways. And so how we did that is, or how we got started is essentially I've been a long time Ethereum user, and I was also a builder within Cosmos. Cosmos was always the most flexible stack to build something unique. That's why you have things like DYDX, Parachain, Osmosis, because you can change the way transactions are ordered, the way that they're processed, like how the chain actually works. The problem with Cosmos is a few things. First is it's difficult to build a layer one. You have to bootstrap a validator set, you have to deal with token inflation, you have to run all these IBC relayers. The second is IBC has pairwise dependencies. So if you are moving over IBC from chain A to B to C versus A to C directly, you get two of the same token, which is horrible for liquidity. And Cosmos Hub never became like a router for this system. And then as the ecosystem evolved, it wasn't really guided well. And so you had all these teams trying to become hubs, and Adam was never really influencing the entire system.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of on the side. I feel like Osmosis is like probably the most obvious trying to become a hub of Cosmos with the trading. And I think like Noble kind of as well from a certain angle with their asset issuance. I'm less versed in Cosmos,
Yep.
but that's kind of my understanding.
Aren't you building a Cosmos chain?
We use parts of Cosmos.
EVM on Cosmos?
No, yeah. EVM beside Cosmos.
I'd agree with those statements. Like Osmosis became the liquidity hub. Noble's trying to become the hub in a sense through asset issuance.
Mm-hmm.
The regular hub can just go die off essentially.
Yeah, that seems to be consensus at this
Yeah.
point. Like,
And then on Ethereum, on the opposite side, you essentially had this system that was built for token transfers, right? And Vitalik recently said, like, in his ideal world, like there wouldn't be no DeFi on Ethereum.
Yeah, which is crazy.
He basically said
It's
like
ridiculous.
the entire L2 landscape was built for the purpose of like sending tokens.
Yeah.
And that means there was no design that came into play of like, what about transferring between these? Like, what about liquidity fragmentation? How does liquidity work? And so we appended this roll-up system for the sake of scaling these transfers. And the state that we're in right now is you have these OP stack and these Arbitrum orbit chains that give you the exact same copy-paste fork. You get literally the same thing, and all you can do is play with the Solidity environment or change like the gas token. But obviously there's no flexibility or customization, and then everything about like how those multiple different chains come together has to be done by third parties. You also have to use third parties for bridging, oracles, data availability, like you're never gonna get a native stablecoin access. And so Initia basically said, let's combine some of the best bits of both of these and make sure that we glue it together in the right way without having to invent like a new token system or a new messaging system. Like you can use the best bits of all of these. And so I know I didn't end up describing Initia.
No, but you described all the problems of everything else. But that's kind of what I was getting at is like you guys, the best parts of different projects that you've seen before you, and I think we were on a space about this, like it's advantageous for you in the time that your launch is happening because you've been able to learn from the experience of others. Just like in 5 years, someone's going to learn from the experience of you, whether you guys do very well or.
You'll be deprecated in 5 years, is what
It'll
he's
be
saying.
over for us.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, it's just this is how tech evolves. But kind of our focus here has been chain abstraction, which I think you guys are doing something pretty cool. Like you guys have this like initial wallet that users can kind of go and use, and it's much better for L1 and L2 within the initial ecosystem than it is for like on Ethereum or on Cosmos in terms of like operating the chains. Talk us through like how chain abstraction is applied in your vision and in the initial system, and just kind of like your vision for making it super easy for people to interact on chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to slightly answer your question, but first answer a question that I just want to talk about, which is
Go ahead.
Go off, Zon.
so essentially Initia is a layer 1, right, that's built for a rollup-centric future, and then a system of layer 2s that are full-fledged Cosmos chains, so change whatever about the chain, and they operate in EVM, MoveVM, or WASM VMs, whatever smart contract environment you want. The point of building this in tandem is that we can make the architectural choices that create this seamless world of like, you have asset fungibility across all of this. And now I think architecture stack is just one piece of the puzzle, right? You launch a rollup on Initia, you get native USDC and CCTP, layer 0, IBC, oracles, like DA, everything's just enshrined and works. You don't have to use any third parties. It's just there. Focus on your app. And so the second piece that comes on top of that, which relates to your question, is like, what does the product experience look like? Right. And the way that I often see this is that I think rollups on Ethereum right now are a lot more like the Android Thesis. You have this infrastructure, and then you can put all these different types of systems into play, whether that be like which interoperability solution you use, how you use oracles, like wallets, all that sort of stuff. And Initia is a lot more like the Apple design concept, in the sense that we want to have some first control over the architecture stack, how it works, and guide it so that we know it's going to work well as it scales. And the second is we want to have some control over the biggest product pieces. So what it looks like to connect to wallets on all of these different layer 2s. What does it look like to bridge around all of these layer 2s? And how can we evolve that over time to create this chain abstraction environment? So I think chain abstraction is interesting for the ultimate user experience, where like you don't have to deal with all these chains, but they can all be sovereign, they can all change things about them. I think personality for chains, though, is very important.
Yeah.
I would hate for chain abstraction to happen
like
right
the vibe,
now.
right?
Yeah,
like,
vibes matter.
What did No Sleep John tweet that, or I think I was talking to him about that as well. He was like, dude, chains have vibes. I think it might have been Mark from Layer Zero. It was like, chains have vibes. Users want to go where the vibes are. So I think it's like a spectrum of user preferences. But like, still, can you answer the question about how?
What was the question?
Like how have you built Initia in such a way that chain that the user experience is just better than Cosmos or Ethereum? Like, why is it? Why and how? Well, I'm angry, John.
So I think one of the things that you can easily point to on Ethereum is, like, as a user that uses DeFi, we know how to like bridge to a layer 2. But as a new user, it's insanely complicated because there's like 10 different bridges, like 5 different aggregators, and all these different wrap tokens. So you can have USDC on Arbitrum and USDC on Optimism, but they're not the same thing. And how you transfer between them, like you need liquidity pools, or you need intent systems, or you need something like CCTP. And so just simple stuff like that is going to be a huge problem for like adoption in the long term. And so that's what Initia's architecture takes care of. But what the product does is it just like sits on top of this to help remove that experience. So on Initia right now, despite what VM a layer 2 is in, you can connect any EVM wallet, Cosmos wallet, or in-app wallets. I'm like a Rabbi Maxi, so I'm not going to use Kepler, unfortunately.
Yeah.
The very good team, though.
Disclaimer.
The second is just how you move around all these systems, right? If we can build those interfaces, we can essentially psyops users into believing this is just how I send between applications, rather than I'm actually doing bridging. I need to figure out like what token I need to be able to send it, where I need to do it. And one of the things that powers that interwoven experience is enshrined liquidity. So we have this system on the layer 1 where we stake init X LP tokens directly with our validators. So things like init ETH, init USDC, init TIA. And what that does is if it creates a hub of liquidity, one that's very accessible to layer 2s. It puts assets to work in a productive manner to secure the network. And 3, as you're moving from layer 2 to layer 2, you can essentially like send USDC and get ETH on the other side, and there's like perfect amounts of liquidity to be able to do those.
Are validators staking these LP positions?
Yes.
So you're building, dare I say, Appchain?
Yeah, it's Appchain.
So Appchain has,
But it's interwoven. It's interwoven Barra.
it's there's definitely some inspiration. I'd say they did a very good job with proof of liquidity. It works a bit differently because you farm BGT on a DEX and then you stake BGT with validators. We stake actual LP tokens, but ours was really inspired by Balancer, which had governance power derived from 80-20 BAL-WETH pairs.
But they just never got.
Great idea.
Yeah, it's funny how these DeFi Legos. We were talking about like some of like the lack of innovation over the last 2-3 years, but it like I find that some of these DeFi Legos or like these like cool primitives, they're now being used in systems like this that like don't seem to be so like
100%, yeah.
but they're still very impactful.
I mean, like a funny story from that, like originally when we founded this company, we were building interest rate derivatives. Yeah. There were multiple companies that were working on this. Element was the one that had raised the most. All of them pivoted except for Pendle. Pendle stuck with it for like literally 2 years of just like very marginal traction.
And then points.
And then points,
Yeah.
and this thing ripped. And so I think, back then we almost saw so much leaning into DeFi innovation that the types of instruments people were trying to create were beyond what the maturity of that financial system at the time could support.
Correct.
And now we're seeing like funny little, like we pivoted from interest rate derivatives, but now we're seeing it mature to, in a weird enough way, like points have introduced like this as like, okay, the first like product market fit of interest rate derivatives was points. So yeah, it is kind of like interesting seeing that like
come into these new systems. Yeah, but it's just like on builders to take these ideas and like implement, because it's gonna be hard to do in another 0 to 1 like that.
You have to put them in productive use cases. Like I think Appchain realized that like liquidity is like just a massive part of any chain, and then we realized that this type of system is perfect for multi-chain networks to make like moving around them just as seamless as possible and like asset transfers as seamless as possible.
So as a user, am I ever going to use the L1, or am I only going to implicitly use it if I'm like swapping from tokens
You
from
will
one L2
implicitly
to
use
another
it.
L2?
There can be applications that are built on it, but the way that we see the system scaling is each application being its own chain, so that you kind of isolate the throughput requirements and you don't congest the base layer 1.
It is really interesting thinking about the architecture of this in context of the Ethereum ecosystem right now. I think there is like very recently like a strong pull to try and push functionality back to the L1. We're hearing about things like we were talking about this earlier, like based app rollups, for example, and really using like pre-confirmations and trying to pull stuff back into the core L1 network. Because I feel like we just externalized so much, and now it's kind of people are questioning what the business model is. But now
it's like, what do you want the L1 to be there for? And you want it for liquidity, security, rewards, and like asset issuance. Just making sure that everything, all these layer 2s have everything they need. It's basically like a asset provider. The layer 1 basically exists to support all of the layer 2s, and then execution, which is like what the scaling is needed for, can be pushed off to each of them.
Everclear is pioneering the clearing layer. The clearing layer can almost be thought of as splitwise when you go on a trip with friends, but for the blockchain. What I mean by that is when users are sending cross-chain messages, there's oftentimes fillers and solvers who have balances left on different chains that they need to rebalance and reset their positions. This is where Everclear comes in. Everclear is pioneering a collaborative approach to the chain abstraction future, and they are willing to work with interoperability partners, solvers, and other providers in the space to build a interoperable and chain abstraction future. Check out Everclear at everclear.org, and welcome back to the Rollup.
Let's talk about the apps. Where are the apps? When apps? Is there any apps? So
we got some apps.
Yeah, Initia is the result of its apps. Like
there's Minitias.
Yeah, there are Minitias.
Minitias.
How did you guys come up with that name?
It stands for Mini Initia.
Okay.
And then the entire system of Minitias plus Initia is Omnitia.
Omnitia. And you guys just dropped minute swap?
Dropped minute swap
Minute swap?
because
So.
you can swap or bridge as fast as a minute, but I realized that a minute is too long.
Yeah.
So we might have to rename that to second swap.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about
And
the
then
apps.
VIP.
Yeah, let's talk about the apps and then we get into VIP a bit.
Okay, so the apps, one of the interesting things is if you think about modular world, you don't think about any apps. You think about infrastructure.
Yeah, real quick, right before the apps, how has your perception of the modular world changed over the last 9 months? Just be brutally honest.
Yeah, I think obviously the 2 modular projects that did launch outside of like DAs quickly went to 0. And that's because they had no emphasis on like apps. They're focusing on their infrastructure. But all this infrastructure only exists to make apps win. So apps should be the main forefront of everything we're trying to push. And Initia's infrastructure and product is just there to like hide all of the complex stuff. Like apps are the reason people are going to go use these things. And that's what we care about pushing. And so I think modular world, not to gloat, but I think like every app in modular land is essentially building on the Interwoven stack.
Okay, so now let's get into these apps.
Okay, so I think there's a few things about building these initial ecosystems. One is if you look at the launches of a lot of L1s that have happened in the past couple of years, you've seen that they focused on either having a large amount of apps, like we have 100 deploying on us, and then it turns out these are all Uni v2 forks, no one cares. The second is cannibalizing your own ecosystem by onboarding apps from other ecosystems. So you bring over something like Pancake or Sushi, you have your users farm those tokens and drive TVL away from native applications. Like unfortunately, no wealth effects are going to be created there and some of your community is going to die out. So rather focus your effort, your rewards, and like your time on trying to help new teams that are committed to you long term just go out and win. And then if you look at successful ecosystems, you see that all of them have been built around like a couple of interesting novel primitives that gained traction and then things got built around them. So Arbitrum, stuff like GMX and like Magic DAO, Optimism, Velodrome, and Synthetics.
They all had like native apps that did well.
Yeah, like Barachain has this awesome cohort of like really unique stuff.
Yeah.
And so we knew that essentially that is the way to create these initial inflows because people want to go do something that they can't do elsewhere, right? Like a lending market's not going to change that. And so that has been our goal as we've built or looked for teams to build on the Interwoven stack. And so we have a couple of cool ones. The first one I'll talk about is Blackwing. They are essentially a protocol that lets you perform leverage trades on any asset, on any chain, with a full DEX and chain abstraction experience. So if there is a token that makes it off Pump Fun is on Radium, I can go long short. If there is something on Thrust or on Blast, I can go long short. Something on Osmosis, the same.
So even if that coin doesn't have liquidity on any other perp decks, you can still trade leverage on Blackwing, on a random meme coin or a random DeFi coin or anything.
You essentially collateralize the LP tokens to then use it to perform leverage. And so their layer 2 is essentially an intent hub with a system of solvers around it that then goes out and makes these trades on behalf of users, and you don't need to know, you don't need to have these different wallet types, like you're just trading these shitcoins.
Yeah, disclosure, I also I invest in Blackwing. I really like the team.
What's going on here?
I mean, no, this is just how media is these days. I mean, I'm doing it, you know.
All right, what's the second one? Does he have bags in it too?
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, I don't think I do.
He's getting interwoven with the ecosystem.
Yeah,
right?
Andy is kingpin he's CEO of Initia, actually.
Yeah, he's CEO.
Okay, let's give us a unique one that you really
Another
like.
one I like a lot is called Contro.
Okay.
They built this thing called the Glob.
Like a clob, but a glob?
With Glob, real good word, stands for Gradual Limit Order Book. And essentially what it does is it slows down the time of markets for order books so that you're not competing on the time frontier. And he's been cooking this for basically 2 years now. And it's specifically built for prediction markets, which is a very timely thing. And essentially one of the problems with prediction markets is that they're very susceptible to front running. Because things like poly markets, they use these liquidity pools. If I find out information sooner than someone else, I can snipe all the remaining upside, and then I win. But the glob essentially removes the time element. So if you find out something sooner than someone else or a little bit later, it doesn't matter.
That's super cool.
I can still be directionally correct on the bet and still make the
I
upside.
was talking to a prediction markets founder. He said that's one of the biggest problems right now is that if you get the information or like somehow the information isn't relayed to the prediction market, you can get out, you can like exit, just get out before everybody else, and then there's not like, there's no liquidity left or whatever. Okay, cool. Just so like the clobs haven't really got that much adoption in DeFi,
Clobs?
central limit order books.
Radium.
Okay, fair enough. Tell us about another cool app that is being built in the Initia ecosystem.
Yeah, so another one that I like a lot is called Civicia. They're essentially building this fully perpetual on-chain game that's basically like a coordinated game of Monopoly, where basically users can like roll dice, they land on these properties, they can buy them. As they buy them, they're entered automatically into a group chat with all the other owners. Then you have to create a bunch of strategy with the other owners to either reinforce your houses or sabotage other houses. And it becomes this basically perpetual coordination game as people continue to play with a bunch of interesting twists and turns. I think that's just going to be fire for like new users to come and have fun.
Yeah, very cool.
Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fraxtal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fraxtal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire Appchain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fraxtal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or Mainnet into the Fraxtal Mainnet, bridge your tokens, and bring your Frax assets into the Fraxtal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fraxtal. You are still early. Join today, take part in our expedition into the singularity.
So one thing I want to ask is, I know you guys have done a really good job building Abstraction on the testnet, and I think you guys, I mostly think of crypto, like it is a very...
I saw that chart go down and I was like, wait.
No, don't worry. You guys were up here, like, there But you guys, so points obviously got farmed to death. We all like know that at this point. Like there were a number of mechanisms to like build up initial community engagement on these testnets. Tell us about the like Jenny thing, because to me this was a very interesting example of like riffing off of existing mechanisms enough that like it was distinct and you could actually create community identity to a certain degree, but also like having some elements of prior things so that people understood how it worked. So like TLDR, explain how you coordinated the like testnet to get all these users in there. Yeah.
We built it.
Okay.
So
Step
coordination
one.
was easy. But essentially what we did is like for a long time before Initia launched, right, we had been working with teams that were interesting and unique, building on the Interwoven stack. And we essentially wanted to ensure that this problem doesn't happen where you go out on mainnet and there's no applications. So even on testnet, we wanted there to be a bunch of fun stuff to interact with and play with, show off how Initia works, but really use it as a way to push engagement to these layer 2 projects. Like I said, our entire goal is to help these layer 2 teams win. And so we understood that points are a good way to do that, but they're frankly boring. And so we built this on-chain game of Tamagotchi, essentially inspired around Jenny, which is Stanford's dog. So what users did was they put together a bunch of different Exodia cards by doing some tasks on the layer 1, summoned your on-chain pet, and then by doing secret challenges across all the layer 2 applications that existed, they earned some points. With those points, they could then buy food through a bunch of different lottery machines. So really the final result is based on some luck as well as usage. And then you could upgrade and evolve your Jenny over time. So it's basically just like a fun interactive way to push people to explore the ecosystem without telling them exactly what to do, get a bunch of feedback, and create identity around Jenny and do a cool evolution process where people are excited to show that they've evolved her.
Yeah. When I like started reading into this, I thought it was pretty clever. Not to like shill you too much, but it was clever.
I also saw a lot of the Jenny dogs in real life after this went out.
Multiple?
Like many of them.
Like
That
that
was a
type
task,
of dog,
right? You
or
had to-
like the dog, like the face of the dog, I saw it everywhere. Like once I was like seeing all the initial stuff and seeing the testnet and playing around, and then I was walking in real life, I'd be like, I started noticing Jennies everywhere.
Yeah, we get in your head, man.
Yeah. Last thing from us as we wrap, testnet's done. What are some of the big learnings for you, and kind of where do we go from here?
Yeah, so testnet was great. Got a bunch of products out. Layer 2's had the opportunity to test their stuff with real users, get real feedback. I think now essentially we're just gearing up for mainnet launch, which should come in the next little bit, pretty soon, not gonna lie. And essentially just ensuring that we have everyone aligned in terms of timeline so that we can go out launching with a suite of teams on the Interwoven stack, use that high attention period of Genesis to push users to these layer 2s, and then ensure that VIP and enshrined liquidity kick off with a bang.
Sweet.
Cool.
Well, thanks, son.
Sick.
was fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.